Most people wait way too long before they seek help. So, a lot of people, they know they need help, they know they're not going to be able to pay their debts back, but they wait 2 years before they finally pick up the phone or walk in the door to see us because they're just scared. They don't know what they're walking into.
Hello, my name is Taylor Mark with Grace Financial Solutions. Thank you for joining us. We are taking the time to find out what to do when there's nothing more you can do to take charge of your debt. Before moving forward, please make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share. I am here with Blair Menton with Sands & Associates in Vancouver. They have offices all over British Columbia as well to help people manage their debts. Hi Blair.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
Sharing your expertise. Okay, well, first question. What is a licensed insolvency trustee?
Yeah, it's a big term, right? It's a mouthful. Up until a couple of years ago, we were called bankruptcy trustees. So you might have known as a trustee in bankruptcy. We're basically the people that you can go to see when you need a plan to deal with your debts. If you find yourself in over your head, we're the only independent person that's authorized by the government to help you restructure your debt. There's two main things we can help with. One is a personal bankruptcy, and the other is a consumer proposal. And essentially, everything that we do is to the end of helping somebody move forward with no debt.
Okay, that sounds good. The end result is no debt.
Yeah.
So how bad does it have to get before someone comes to see you?
Yeah, most people wait way too long before they seek help. So, a lot of people, they know they need help, they know they're not going to be able to pay their debts back, but they wait 2 years before they finally pick up the phone or walk in the door to see us because they're just scared. They don't know what they're walking into. Some typical warning signs, classic ones would be if you're getting a lot of collection calls. People are calling you at work or at home all hours of the morning or night demanding a payment and you can't make it. That's a big warning sign. An obvious one would be if your wages are being garnished, and garnishee means that someone's taking something from you. So if you owe the government a bunch of money, or if you owe a credit card some money and they actually sue you, they can go and they can take up to half of your income, usually 30%, but up to half of your take-home pay can be just taken from you as part of a garnishee. So those are some pretty typical ones, but I think the biggest warning sign that people should pay attention to is if you look at every month, are you getting ahead? You make your minimum payments, does the balance go down next month? Or are you on the plan where you could make that minimum payment for the next 20 or 30 years and you'd never actually get ahead?
Right. Some people can get into that type of scenario with as little as, $3,000-$4,000 in debts, and then other people are dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
So is there a certain limit, I guess, in getting in front of someone like yourself to deal with their debts? Yeah,
in terms of a minimum limit, the minimum is only $1,000, but we don't do any bankruptcies or proposals for only $1,000. That's in the law, and it's been there since the Great Depression. That's when $1,000 was a lot of debt. The average person, when they walk in the door, it's probably between $20,000 to $40,000 of debt, but we do see people, it could be millions of dollars of debt. If there was a bad ICBC accident that wasn't covered, if there was, some investment losses, there can be a bunch of reasons why someone would owe a ton of money, but it's really individual. Someone who makes a lot of money and owes $50,000, that might not seem insurmountable to them. Someone who's really struggling to get by, making minimum wage, and owes $10,000, that might feel like the biggest problem in the world to them. So each person, it's all, can you handle it, and can you really see it tomorrow? Where, we're not talking 10 years from now, but say a year from now, are you going to be less in debt doing what you're doing? 2 years from now, will you be less in debt? If the answer is no, then you need to talk to a professional and start to move in the right direction.
So earlier you mentioned consumer proposal and bankruptcy.
Right.
What's the difference between that, or between the two?
Yeah, so they're completely different legal options. They're both only available through a licensed insolvency trustee. They both give you the protection from your creditors. So again, if your wages are being taken or you're getting harassed with collection calls, or even if you're being taken to court, all that has to stop under both a bankruptcy and a proposal. Where they differ is that in a bankruptcy, you're essentially throwing up your hands and saying, you know what, I've got so much debt, hopelessly indebted, I can't even afford to pay back any part of this debt. So I'm going to file for bankruptcy. I'm going to get relief from my creditors. And in a bankruptcy, you pay back based on your income. If somebody is low income, bankruptcy finishes in 9 months and they make a minimal payment to the trustee each month that basically just covers the cost of the proceeding. Their creditors basically receive no dividend on their debt and all of it gets written off. Consumer proposal is different in that it's working out a deal with the creditors where they agree to stop all the interest, they agree to reduce the debt down to what the person can actually afford, and usually that's in the range of 20% of the debt, 30% 40% of the debt, something like that. So again, all the interest stops, there's no additional charges, and the person just repays what they can afford, which is usually just a fraction of the total debt. And you might say, well, why would creditors ever agree to a deal like that? And the why is because when a person files for bankruptcy, and it's their right to do so, creditors can't reject a bankruptcy, which some people think you need permission, you don't. But if someone files for bankruptcy, we say to the creditors, you might get zero back, or you might get 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. So we'll offer a proposal for maybe 20% of the debt, or 25%, or something like that. That's a win-win. The win to the creditors is they don't have to deal with the bankruptcy and write off all the debt. The win to the individual is they get to pay back what they can afford. There's no further interest. They didn't file for bankruptcy, and literally they pay back usually a third, a quarter, even just 20 cents on the dollar of the debt, and they deal with the problem without a bankruptcy. So just stop fighting, just see the benefit for everybody here. If we file a proposal and it's at 20 cents on the dollar and the creditors don't want it, we'll go back and forth with counter offers until we reach a deal. 99% of the cases, not exaggerating, 99% of the cases where we file a consumer proposal, we actually reach a good deal by the end.
Awesome. What about the consequences of how it affects your credits?
Someone files for bankruptcy. The bankruptcy is often over in 9 months, or in other cases, a year and 9 months, but nothing like the 6-7 years most people think. Once the bankruptcy is over, that's when you can start rebuilding credit, but you will have an impact. You'll have an R9 rating on your credit report for 6 years after the bankruptcy is over. So if it's 9 months in bankruptcy plus 6 years of credit impact, you're at close to 7 years of total. It doesn't mean you're untouchable for those 7 years. Most people within 2 to 3 years after a bankruptcy, they have better credit than when they started. They're able to rebuild their credit. They start with a secured credit card, and people can even qualify for mortgages a couple of years after bankruptcy, where if they hadn't taken that step to clear off their debt, there's no way they could have ever saved the down payment, been mortgage worthy. So sometimes it's totally counterintuitive. Bankruptcy can be a very positive step to actually being financially stable later on. You got to get rid of all this debt around your neck. Consumer proposal is less severe on your credit. So where bankruptcy is an R9, R1 is perfect credit, R9 is bankruptcy, a proposal is R7. So R7 is a negotiated payment arrangement with your creditors. It's the same as if you went through a credit counseling firm and just negotiated an interest freeze, but you paid back everything that you owed. That's still an R7. So a proposal, even though you're paying back 20, 30, 40% of the debt, whatever it is, it hurts you the same as if you just froze the interest. Anytime you renegotiate your debts, it goes to an R7. A proposal, it stays that way for 3 years after you finish it. So if you finish the proposal in a couple of years, plus 3, you could be at 5 years of impact. Sometimes proposals take longer, so it could take 7, 8 years of total impact if the proposal took you 4 years plus 3, but most of the time people pay proposals off more quickly than the targeted time.
You mentioned the counseling, is it credit or credit counselor?
Yeah.
Because I was doing my research and that came up and I was like, okay, well, what is the difference? And why would one want to go there versus to someone like yourself, a licensed insolvency trustee?
If you just need someone to give you some budgeting coaching, you don't need to reduce any of the interest or the cost of your debts, a credit counselor can give you some really good soft skills to help you move forward. In about every other case, if you need to reduce your debt, if you work with a credit counselor, they're not able to do a consumer proposal. The only thing they're able to do is what's called a debt management plan, which is payment in full of all of your debts, but with a break on the interest. Okay.
They would negotiate.
They'll negotiate a break on the interest, right? Whereas with a consumer proposal, there's automatically no interest and you pay back the portion you can afford. So it might be that credit counseling could cost you 3 times more, 4 times more, depending on what structure the proposal might be. Also with a proposal, when I make a deal with your creditors, I don't need everybody to agree because I've got the law behind me. If you've got say $20,000 of debt, as soon as I get over $10,000 of your creditors that want this proposal, it doesn't matter what the other people want. Even if it's CRA, even if it's the government, I can force them to abide by the terms of the proposal if only 50% of your other debts have accepted it.
Wow.
Credit counselors have none of that legal authority. They can't deal with government debt at all, and they need individual creditors all to agree to a plan, and they can opt out at any time. So there's very little protection compared to a consumer proposal. So again, once someone starts to do their research, they start to figure out, you know what, a trustee is your best ally in this situation.
Talking about fees, how is fee structured.
Yeah, and I love having this discussion because it's really transparent. There's only 1,000 licensed insolvency trustees in Canada. Everything we do is heavily regulated by the federal government and by the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy. Every trustee in Canada will offer a free initial consultation. So it's a free meeting. You come in, we usually spend for about an hour. We talk about the situation. The objective is not to make you feel judged at all or feel bad about the past and what's happened. It's to give you a sense of what's the optimism of the future. What can you achieve? What are these options that government created but has done a really poor job of telling you about? That's what a trustee is going to do, is going to explain to you all your options for moving ahead. Once you start to work with a trustee, typically with my clients, I meet them at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 times before we do a formal filing. And it's only at the time that we do a filing do they pay anything. So they might have spent 4 or 5 hours with me, got a lot of good professional advice. We're working to structure a filing. It's if they decide to do a consumer proposal, let's say the proposal is for $200 a month. When we sign the documents, they make the first payment of $200. My fee is included in every payment that they make, whether it's a bankruptcy or a proposal. Government says what they got to pay back in a bankruptcy, and my fee is included in that. In a proposal, whatever deal we work out, the trustee gets a portion of that. There's never a separate invoice that I give to anybody.
Okay, so based on what they can afford, then it is what it is.
Yeah, one way to consider it if you're doing a proposal is that actually the creditors are paying the cost of the trustee. Because we figured out you can afford to pay back, let's say $6,000 on $20,000. That's what you can afford. Trustee's got to get paid from something. Well, trustee gets paid out of that $6,000 and the creditors will get the balance. So essentially it comes out of their pocket and not the individuals.
Having a bankruptcy, going through a bankruptcy, it's very intimidating for anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's always, the negative and positive things that comes out of it. And I know you touch upon a few of those already. But, just to summarize it for us, what are some negative things that will, affect their lives because of this bankruptcy? And what are some positive things that will really help them to go through a bankruptcy?
Yeah, let's start on the negative because the negative is really short. It's, most people have this conception that if you file for bankruptcy, you can never move, you can never travel, you can never leave the country. All those things are fine. There's no impact, passport, citizenship, nothing like that if you file for bankruptcy. The negative impact really is on your credit. So people that loaned you money are going to see for a period of time that unfortunately you weren't able to pay off all your debts in full and you went into a bankruptcy. That's fair and it's reasonable, but it's going to stop after 6 years after your discharge. Then they're going to stop seeing that. So in terms of negative impacts, you can't be fired from your job. You can't be disciplined just because you filed for bankruptcy. There's no newspaper notification in about 99.9% of cases, so probably nobody else is going to know about this situation. The only other negative I can think about it is if you are director of a corporation, which is a very small subset of people, you can't file for bankruptcy and be a director of a corporation. So that's about it from the negatives. On the positive side, my God, imagine a life without debt. Right? Imagine a life where you've been carrying around sometimes for 10, 15 years, just this debt that doesn't seem to go down. Every month you pay your bills, you make the minimum payments, and you see 80 or 90% of that just goes back to interest, and the next month you got to do the same thing again. I have people come to me, literally in tears, beaten down, that something bad has happened in their life, just often no fault of their own. Maybe they lost their job, they got divorced, or a family member got sick, and they had to deal with that, and then they have to deal with the financial impact of that just doesn't go away. So the positivity is just stopping the bleeding, stopping the interest, stopping the debt from increasing, and giving you a hope, a plan, a roadmap that you can be debt-free. Again, the maximum term for a proposal is 5 years. That's the longest term you'd ever have to pay if you did a consumer proposal, and bankruptcy is typically shorter than that. So we're not talking for the rest of your life you got to carry around these problems. You can deal with them very quickly, efficiently, and privately if you see a licensed insolvency trustee.
Okay, and the process itself, it could be relatively stress-free, can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we try to achieve, because when we step in the middle like a referee, suddenly you don't have to deal with all these people yelling and screaming and changing all the rules for you all the time. We're incredibly clear when you sign up with us, whether it's a bankruptcy or a proposal, here's how things are going to go. Call me if you have problems. Someone bothers you, they got to bother me instead. I'm on the case here. So definitely the raising or the lowering of a raised stress level, that's something that I really take pride in, the ability literally to give people their lives back.
Cool. Thank you very much, Blair.
My pleasure.
So, actually, Blair has his own radio show. Can you share with us?
Yeah, it's on CKNW AM 980. It's on Sundays at 5 p.m.
Awesome. That information, as well as the website for Sanson Associate, will be on the description for this video. So for all of you that are thinking about it, now that you got a little bit more information, it might be worth it to have that complimentary initial consultation and see if it's something that's right for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are super happy to have Blair to share with us all this amazing information. I learned a lot. I don't know about you. And you know what? If you have comments, you have extra questions, feel free to leave it on the comment section below. And as always, please subscribe, share, and like this video. In Grace Financial Solutions, financial success made simple. Please, before we get started, like this video, share it, and subscribe when you have a chance. I don't know why I said that, because that doesn't sound right.
No,
let's just start.
Right now. It's not
Start
when
right
you have
now,
a
not
chance.
the chance. Exactly, right now. Oh my gosh. Okay,